I stared at the custom-made "Welcome Baby" banner, wondering if the rose gold lettering was a mistake. June had always preferred simple designs, but Mother insisted on elevating everything these days. The party planner's invoice in my hand reminded me why I should have said no to organizing this baby shower in the first place. I'm Cora, and I've spent the last 15 years trying to prove that career success and family devotion aren't mutually exclusive. Spoiler alert, my mother still doesn't buy it. The caterer called, Kaya said, appearing beside me with her clipboard. They're running 20 minutes late. Of course they are. I checked my watch. Another work email needed attention, but it could wait. Did you confirm the flower arrangements? All set, but your mom called again. She wants to know if we can rearrange the seating chart to put June's college friends closer to the front. I closed my eyes, counting to 10. The chart we finalized 3 days ago. The one she approved? The very same. Kaya squeezed my shoulder. Want me to tell her no? I'll handle it. I pulled out my phone, dialing Mother's number. 1 ring, 2 rings. Cora, darling. Mother's voice dripped honey, never a good sign. I was just thinking about the seating. Mother, we can't change it now. The place cards are printed and the tables are set. But June specifically requested. June approved the arrangement last week. I watched the venue staff arrange crystal centerpieces that cost more than my first car. Remember, during the family dinner. Oh, you mean the dinner you left early for that conference call? There it was. The signature Aurora Norris guilt trip, right on schedule. That call secured the Thompson account, I said, keeping my voice level. It's helping pay for this shower you're trying to micromanage. Always about work with you, isn't it? She sighed dramatically. Your sister is having a baby, Cora. A baby. Would it kill you to focus on family for once? The venue manager waved frantically from across the room. Another fire to extinguish. Mother, I need to go. The seating stays as is. I hung up before she could protest. Problems? Kaya asked, already knowing the answer. Just the usual, Mother being Mother. I straightened my blazer. What's wrong now? The dessert table's lighting isn't ethereal enough, apparently. Kaya rolled her eyes. The manager's having a meltdown. As we walked over, my phone buzzed. June's text lit up the screen. Mom says you're being difficult about the seating. Why can't you just help make my day perfect? Perfect, like the straight A's that were never good enough. Like the promotion that meant nothing because I missed Sunday dinner. Like this $40,000 baby shower that still somehow fell short. The lights are fine, I told the manager firmly. If anything, we'll adjust the camera settings for photos. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Herbert, the family lawyer. Cora, your mother's on my other line about the venue contract. Something about last-minute changes. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Tell her any changes now will incur extra charges. Significant ones. She says money isn't an issue. Of course not. It's not her money. I watched another delivery arrive. Hand-painted party favors from June's favorite artist. Just hold her off, please. We're hours away from the event. Will do. And Cora. Herbert paused. You're doing a wonderful job. Don't let anyone tell you differently. I ended the call, feeling a familiar ache in my chest. The same ache I felt at 12, when Mother praised June's mediocre piano recital, but missed my debate championship. The same twist when she gushed about June's art major while dismissing my business degree as cold and calculating. Hey, Kaya's voice pulled me back. You okay? Fine. I straightened the nearest place card. Just wondering why I keep trying to prove myself to people who've already made up their minds about me. Because you're Cora, she said simply. You never give up, even when you should. The caterers finally arrived, creating a welcome distraction. As I directed them to the kitchen, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from Aunt Maeve. Your mother's on the warpath. Brace yourself, dear. And remember, you're worth more than their approval. I looked around the perfectly decorated venue, at the 1,000 little details I'd orchestrated while juggling client meetings and project deadlines. In 4 hours, this room would fill with guests, and my sister would have her perfect baby shower. And I would smile and nod and pretend their words didn't cut like always, because that's what good daughters do, right? The baby shower was in full swing when my phone vibrated for the 10th time. A client crisis needed immediate attention. I slipped behind a decorative screen, trying to keep my voice down. "Yes, I understand the urgency," I whispered. "I can review the contract in 20 minutes. "Cora," Mother's voice cut through the party chatter. "What are you doing back there?" I ended the call quickly. "Just checking on the gift arrangements, Mother." Always with that phone. She grabbed my arm, steering me toward the crowd. "Your sister is about to open presents. Surely your precious work can wait." June sat in the ornate chair I'd specially ordered, surrounded by cooing guests. Her pregnancy glow was amplified by the professional lighting I'd arranged. Not that anyone would mention that detail. "There you are." June's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I was starting to think you'd disappeared." Just managing some details. I took my designated seat beside her, noting how Mother hovered nearby like a watchful hawk. Details, details. Mother sighed loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. That's all Cora thinks about these days. Numbers and contracts instead of family. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. I felt my cheeks burn, but maintained my smile. "Let's focus on the presents, shall we?" June opened gift after gift. Each one met with appropriate oohs and ahs. I checked my phone discreetly. 3 missed calls from the client. "Oh, this one's from Cora," June announced, lifting an elegantly wrapped package. My stomach nodded. I'd spent weeks hunting down the vintage silver rattle, identical to the one in our grandmother's baby photos. June tore through the paper, revealing the velvet box. "Oh, it's nice. It's just like Grandma Margaret's," I explained quickly. "Remember how she always told us about—" "Speaking of remembering," Mother interrupted, "remember when Cora missed June's college graduation because of a crucial meeting?" The room went silent. June's husband Franklin shifted in his seat, looking anywhere but at me. "Mother, that was years ago," I said quietly, "and I flew in the next day. And now here we are," Mother continued, as if I hadn't spoken, "at June's baby shower, and she can't even put her phone down for an hour." "Aurora," Aunt Maeve warned from across the room. But Mother was on a roll. "Do you know who arranged this entire shower?" June joined in, her voice thick with hormonal tears. "Our mother did, while you were too busy with your important career to help." I stared at her, stunned. "June, I literally planned every—" "Oh sure," she sniffled. "You wrote some checks, threw money at it like you do with everything. But where were you for the actual planning? The late-night calls about color schemes? The menu tastings?" "I was on those calls." My voice rose despite my efforts. "I scheduled them around your timeline." "Ladies," Franklin tried to intervene, but Mother shot him a look that could freeze hell. "Your sister's having a baby," Mother announced to the room at large. "A miracle, a new life. But I suppose that's not as important as whatever's on that phone of yours." My phone buzzed again. The client was now threatening to pull their account. "I need to take this," I said, standing up. "It's important." "More important than family?" June's voice cracked. "More important than me." The room was dead silent now, every guest witnessing my public execution. "You know what?" I grabbed my purse. "Yes, right now, this call is more important. Because unlike this shower, which I planned, paid for, and am apparently getting 0 credit for, this call actually matters to people who value my time and effort." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mother's face turned purple. "How dare you?" she sputtered. "After everything we've done for you." "Everything you've done for me," I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Please enlighten me." Was it the constant criticism, the comparison to June, the guilt trips? "Cora," Kaya peered at my elbow. "Maybe we should step outside." "No need." I straightened my spine, channeling every ounce of boardroom confidence I possessed. "I'm leaving. Enjoy the shower, June. The venue's paid through 7. Try not to let mother convince you I ruined this too. I turned on my heel, walking steadily toward the exit, despite the trembling in my legs. Behind me, I heard mother's theatrical sobs and June's hiccuping tears. Just before the door closed, I heard Aunt Maeve's clear voice. "Well, Aurora, I hope you're satisfied. You've finally done it." I made it to my car before the tears came. But as I sat there, watching the venue staff scurry around through the windows, a strange calm settled over me. My phone buzzed again, but this time, instead of anxiety, I felt something else stirring in my chest: resolve. I sat in my car for exactly 3 minutes before making the call. My hands had stopped shaking, replaced by an eerie steadiness I usually reserved for hostile takeovers. "Herbert, it's Cora. Remember that contingency plan we discussed? The one you said you'd never use?" He sounded concerned. "What happened in there?" "They finally pushed too far. I watched another delivery van arrive at the venue. I need you to execute Plan B, all of it." "Cora," he hesitated. "Are you sure? This will—" "They think I just write checks, Herbert. Let's show them exactly what that means." After hanging up, I called the venue manager. "Sarah, yes, about those payment arrangements we discussed." "Of course, Ms. Norris. Everything's set up as requested. Should I?" "Yes. Implement all changes effective immediately." My phone lit up with a text from Kaya. "Holy shit, they're still going at it. June's crying about how you abandoned her special day. Your mom's holding court like a martyred queen." I smiled, typing back, "Give it 20 minutes." The next call was to the catering company, followed by the bartender, the photographer, and the entertainment service. Each conversation was brief, professional, and devastating in its simplicity. "Everything's in place," Herbert texted. "You're really doing this?" "They wanted to talk about money," I replied. "So let's talk about money." I started my car, catching a glimpse of Aunt Maeve hurrying out of the venue. She spotted me and rushed over. I rolled down my window. "Cora, whatever you're planning," she started. "How bad is it in there?" She leaned against my car, sighing. "Your mother's turned it into a full Greek tragedy. June's convinced you've ruined her life. Franklin looks like he wants to disappear." "Perfect." I checked my watch. "In about 10 minutes, they'll have something real to cry about." "What did you do?" "Nothing they haven't asked for." I showed her my phone, scrolling through the emails. "See, Mother always said I was good with numbers. Time to prove her right." Aunt Maeve's eyes widened as she read. "Oh my God, Cora, this is perfectly legal. Everything's in my name. All contracts, all arrangements." I started the engine. "They wanted to talk about how I just throw money around. Well, now they can handle it themselves." "Where are you going?" "The spa. I have a massage booked." I smiled. I did pay for it, after all. As I pulled away, I glimpsed the first signs of chaos through the venue's windows. Sarah would be making her announcements now. The open bar would suddenly require payment. The photographer would pack up. The caterers would stop service. And the bills, every single itemized bill, would be distributed to the guests who'd sat there smugly watching my humiliation. My phone exploded with notifications. I connected it to the car's Bluetooth, letting the messages play through the speakers. "Cora, what's happening?" June's voice trembled. "The venue says we need to pay. Delete. This is your mother. How dare you? Delete. Hey, it's Franklin. Look, I know things got out of hand. Delete." A new text from Kaya. "OMFG. Your mom just tried to put everything on her credit card. It was declined. June's friends are leaving. This is better than Netflix." I pulled into the spa parking lot, feeling lighter than I had in years. The receptionist greeted me with a warm smile. "Welcome, Ms. Norris. Your private relaxation suite is ready." "Thank you." I handed her my phone. "Could you keep this for me? I'm expecting some calls I'd rather not take." "Of course. Would you like to see our wine list?" "Please." As I followed her to the suite, another text came through from Herbert. "Bills are all distributed. Your mother's trying to reach the venue owner. Should I run interference?" "No," I typed back. "Let her try. Sometimes lessons need to be learned the hard way." I changed into the plush spa robe. listening to the distant sound of waterfalls. My phone buzzed one final time before I handed it over. A message from Aunt Maeve. Your mother's face when the bar tab arrived. Worth every penny. But darling, was it worth burning the bridge? I thought about years of criticism, of diminishment, of being treated like an ATM while being told I wasn't family-oriented enough. Some bridges, I replied, need to burn so you can finally see what's on the other side. Then I turned off my phone, ordered a glass of champagne, and prepared to enjoy every minute of my very expensive revenge. After all, I had written the check for it. The massage therapist's hands worked out 15 years of family-induced tension from my shoulders, while my phone collected angry messages in the locker room. 2 hours of blissful silence, interrupted only by the soft meditation music and occasional sound of my own satisfied sighs. More pressure, Maria, the therapist, asked. Perfect as is, I melted into the table, though I might need an extra hour. Bad day. Actually, it's turning out better than expected. When I finally emerged from the treatment room, the receptionist gave me a sympathetic look. Your phone's been active, 37 missed calls. I assume none of them were pleasant. The last one was quite loud. She handed me the phone. Something about financial terrorism? I scrolled through the messages, each one more desperate than the last. The final voicemail was from Mother, her voice shrill with panic. Cora Elizabeth Norris, you answer this phone right now. The venue is demanding payment for everything. Everything. June's friends had to pay for their own drinks. The photographer left with all the photos. The caterers packed up the food. What have you done? I deleted it with a smile and dialed Kaya. You absolute legend, she answered, laughing. I wish you could have seen it. Your mother tried to pull the "Do you know who I am?" card with the venue manager. Sarah just kept showing her the contracts with your signature. How's June? Crying, obviously. But get this, her college friends bailed when they got stuck with the bar tab. Real friendship test right there. I settled into the spa's relaxation lounge, accepting a glass of infused water. And Franklin, actually handling it better than expected. He's been making calls, trying to sort things out. I heard him tell June that maybe they'd been taking advantage of you. Interesting. I sipped my water. Any other casualties? Those designer cupcakes you ordered. The ones Mother bragged about arranging. They got packed up right as she was showing them off to her church friends. Beautiful timing. My phone buzzed with another incoming call. Herbert, hold on, Kaya. I need to take this. Cora, Herbert said without preamble. Your mother's threatening legal action. For what? I paid for everything. Exactly. You paid. And you had every right to withdraw services. She's grasping at straws. Let her grasp. I examined my freshly manicured nails. How much is the final damage? Well, between the remaining venue fees, the bar tabs, the photographer's cancellation fee, and the catering balance, roughly $28,000, which they'll have to cover themselves. Your mother's credit cards are all maxed out. He cleared his throat. June's too. Not my problem. Franklin's been reasonable. He's offered to work out a payment plan. Decline it. I stood up, gathering my things. They wanted to handle everything without my money-throwing interference. Let them. My phone buzzed again. Aunt Maeve. You've created quite the scandal, she said when I answered. Half the country club will be talking about this for months. Good, maybe they'll think twice before inviting Mother to plan their events. June's a mess, says you've ruined her baby shower memories forever. Better than letting her ruin the rest of my life. I signed my spa bill, adding a generous tip. How's Mother taking it? She's already calling everyone she knows for loans. No takers so far. Apparently, her credit history isn't as pristine as she pretends. I stepped out into the evening air, feeling refreshed and remarkably unburdened. Any regrets? Only that I didn't record it all. Aunt Maeve chuckled. Though I did get a lovely photo of your mother's face when the bar tab arrived. Worth framing, really. My phone lit up with a text from Franklin. Can we talk? Just us. I think some apologies are overdue. Interesting timing. I muttered. What will you do now? Aunt Maeve asked. I got into my car, adjusting the mirror. In it, I saw a woman who finally looked free. Now, I'm going home, ordering takeout, and enjoying the silence. They wanted to talk about money. Well, now they can talk about it amongst themselves. And tomorrow? Tomorrow I'll go back to being the successful career woman they love to criticize. Only this time, they'll know exactly what that means. As I drove home, my phone kept buzzing with messages and calls. Each one represented a person who'd watched me be humiliated, but was now desperate for my help. Each one would go unanswered, because sometimes the best revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about teaching people the value of what they took for granted, and judging by the mounting bills in their hands, that lesson was just beginning. Monday morning arrived with 53 unread messages and 12 voicemails. I deleted them all and walked into my office like any other day. My assistant Sandra met me with coffee and a knowing smile. Your mother called the office 6 times. Any other calls? The Thompson contract is signed. The merger meeting is at 2. And she hesitated. Your sister's husband stopped by. Franklin was here. Said he wanted to talk business. Sandra handed me a folder. I told him you were in meetings all day. My office phone lit up. Your mother again, Sandra said. Let it ring. Kaya burst through the door, coffee in hand. Tell me everything. How was the spa? Did you sleep well? Have you checked social media? One question at a time. I logged into my computer. The spa was perfect. I slept like a baby. And no, I'm avoiding social media. Oh, you shouldn't. She pulled out her phone. Your mom's church friends are having a meltdown in the community Facebook group. Apparently, you've destroyed the sanctity of baby showers forever. Tragic. June's posted 3 crying selfies. The last one says, when your own sister betrays you on your special day. My phone buzzed. Aunt Maeve, your mother's holding an emergency family meeting tonight, she said, without greeting. She's trying to rally the troops against you. Good luck with that. I checked my calendar. Most of them owe me money too. Franklin's been asking questions about the business side of things. Has he? I pulled up my banking app. Interesting timing, considering June's credit card payment is due today. That's not all. Aunt Maeve lowered her voice. Your mother's been calling everyone about refinancing her house. Kaya, who'd been scrolling through social media, looked up sharply. Oh my God, you have to see this. June's college friends posted about the tacky cash bar, and your mom went nuclear in the comments. My office phone lit up again. Your sister this time. Sandra's voice came through the intercom. Still in meetings, Aunt Maeve sighed through the phone. Aurora's threatening to write a letter to your board of directors about your unethical business practices. The board that I'm on, I laughed. The one that values my ability to manage multi-million-dollar deals? She's desperate. Aunt Maeve paused. They all are. Good. I opened my email to find several messages from Franklin. Maybe now they'll understand what it feels like to be valued only for your financial contributions. Kaya perched on my desk. Franklin's been commenting on your professional achievements on LinkedIn. Every single post. Trying to butter me up? More like damage control. His law firm's partners follow you. My phone buzzed with a text from Herbert. June's trying to dispute the venue charges on her credit card. Not going well for her. Your mother's calling again, Sandra announced. I pressed the intercom. Sandra, hold all calls unless they're about the Thompson deal. And if Franklin comes by again, tell him my schedule's full through next month. What about the family meeting tonight? Aunt Maeve asked. I have a dinner with clients. I didn't, but they didn't need to know that. Besides, I think they need to figure this one out themselves. Aurora's saying you've turned your back on family. No, I corrected. I've turned my back on being their personal bank. There's a difference. Kaya showed me her phone again. June's posted another update. When money matters more than family bonds. It has 3 crying emojis. Interesting how family bonds only matter when they need something from me. Sandra buzzed again. Your mother's on all 3 lines now. Time to get some actual work done. I stood up, straightening my blazer. Sandra, I'm heading to the Thompson meeting early. Forward all family calls to voicemail. And the emergency meeting, Aunt Maeve pressed. Tell them I'm busy throwing money at my career. I grabbed my portfolio. That's what I'm good at, remember. As I walked to the conference room, my phone lit up with a text from Franklin. We need to talk about June's credit score. Delete. Another from Mother. This behavior is unacceptable. We raised you better. Delete. One from June. The bank called about the venue payment. Please, Cora, we need help. Delete. Kaya caught up with me at the elevator. You know they'll keep trying. Let them. I stepped inside, pressing the button for the executive floor. They wanted to talk about how I prioritize work over family. Well, now they can see exactly what that work provides. And if they apologize, then they better make it good. The elevator doors closed on the chaos I'd left behind. Because this time, sorry isn't going to pay their bills. The Thompson contract waited upstairs, ready to be finalized. Another multi-million-dollar deal that my family would never appreciate. Until now, when they desperately needed the money it represented. Funny how karma works sometimes. 3 days of silence turned into a week. Well, silence from my end. My family's desperate attempts at contact grew more creative by the day. Mother even tried sending a singing telegram to my office. You have to admit that was a bold move, Kaya said over lunch. Though the singer looked pretty uncomfortable, delivering a guilt trip ballad in your lobby. Sandra recorded it. I picked at my salad. The board got a good laugh. Speaking of bold moves, she slid her phone across the table. Check your aunt's latest update. The photo showed Mother standing outside my childhood home, next to a "for sale" sign. The caption read, "Sometimes pride costs more than money." Subtle, I muttered. Franklin's been asking around about job openings at other firms. Kaya continued. Apparently, his partners aren't thrilled about the baby shower drama reaching their clients. My phone lit up, Herbert calling. Your mother's here in my office, he said, without preamble, with June. And? They want to discuss payment plans for the shower expenses. June's crying about credit score impacts. Not my problem. Cora. He lowered his voice. They're desperate. Your mother's talking about bankruptcy. Funny how money matters now. A text came through from Aunt Maeve. Aurora's selling her antique collection. The one she always said you weren't refined enough to inherit. Tell them I'm in meetings, I told Herbert. They've been here 3 hours. Then they can leave 3 hours wiser. I ended the call just as Sandra buzzed my office phone. Franklin's here again, says it's urgent. For the first time in a week, I hesitated. Send him in. Franklin looked different, tired, rumpled, less like the polished lawyer who'd watch silently during my humiliation. 2 minutes, I said before he could speak. June's a mess. He remained standing. Your mother's selling everything. Our credit is shot. I'm probably losing my partnership track. Sounds like consequences. Look, he ran a hand through his hair. I know we messed up. I should have spoken up at the shower. We all took you for granted. That's one way to put it. June's having panic attacks about the baby's nursery. We can't get approved for any new credit cards. Still not hearing a point. He pulled out his phone, showing me a photo of June, curled up on their couch, clearly distraught. She's your sister, Cora. Whatever happened? Whatever happened? I stood up. You mean when they publicly humiliated me? When they dismissed years of support? When they called me cold and calculating while happily spending my money? We were wrong. No, you were comfortable. Taking and taking while giving nothing but criticism in return. I walked to the window. How's that working out for you? The baby's due in 4 months. I'm aware. The crib I ordered arrived yesterday. I canceled the delivery. His phone buzzed. June calling. He ignored it. Your mother's house is in pre-foreclosure, he said quietly. She has options. She could sell her designer handbags, or her vacation timeshare, or maybe call all those real family people she loves to compare me to. Cora, please. Please what, Franklin? Bail them out? Write another check? Go back to being the family ATM they can criticize between withdrawals. Sandra buzzed again. Your mother and sister just arrived in the lobby. Tell security not to let them up. Franklin stepped closer. They're sorry. No, they're broke. There's a difference. Then what do you want? What will it take to fix this? I turned to face him fully. Fix what, exactly? The relationship they never valued? The support they took for granted? The success they resented? His phone buzzed again, mother this time. You should go, I said. Sounds like they need you. They need you. No, they need my money, and for the first time they're realizing those aren't the same thing. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I always admired your drive, your success. June was jealous, your mother was threatened. And now? Now they're just scared of losing more than money. After he left, I watched through my office window as he joined Mother and June in the parking lot. They huddled together, probably plotting their next attempt at reconciliation. My phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Maeve. They're breaking, dear. Question is, are you ready for what happens when they do? I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled up the Baby Boutique website, where June had registered. The silver rattle she'd dismissed sat in my cart, along with every other item on her wish list. One click would solve all their problems. I closed the browser. Some lessons cost more than money, and this one wasn't finished teaching yet. The knock on my apartment door came at 9 p.m., exactly 2 weeks after the baby shower. I knew who it was before I checked the peephole. June stood there alone, no makeup, wearing the ratty college sweatshirt she'd always refused to throw away. You look terrible, I said, opening the door. Can I come in? I stepped aside, noting how she cradled her baby bump protectively. She settled on my couch, looking small against the modern furniture she'd once called soulless. Mom doesn't know I'm here, she said quietly. Of course she does. She's probably waiting in the car. No, I mean it. June met my eyes. I took an Uber. Franklin's at a partner meeting, trying to save his job. I remained standing. What do you want, June? I found the receipts, her voice cracked. For the shower, all of them. Mom had thrown them away, but I needed to know. And $47,000. She wiped her eyes. Not counting the gifts you bought. The ones you spent months picking out. Is this the part where I'm supposed to feel appreciated? Because you finally looked at the price tag? No. She touched her stomach. This is the part where I tell you I'm scared. Really scared. We can't afford anything for the baby. My credit cards are maxed. Franklin's firm is putting him on probation. Mom's losing the house. Sounds rough. I deserve that. She pulled out her phone. But look at this. Really look. She showed me photos from the shower. Before everything fell apart, the details I'd obsessed over were evident in every shot. The custom lighting that made everyone look perfect. The hand-calligraphed place cards. The precisely arranged flowers. You did all this, she whispered, while closing the Thompson deal, while handling the merger, while I complained about you not being there for tastings. Your point? My point is, she struggled to stand, her pregnant belly making it awkward. I was jealous, always have been. You made everything look so easy. Your career, your success. Even throwing the perfect baby shower seemed effortless for you. It wasn't. I know that now. She walked to my window, staring at the city lights. Mom's a mess. She's lost everything, her status, her credit, her reputation. The country club actually revoked her membership. Tragic. She deserved it. June turned back to me. We all did. We treated you like a bank while acting like you weren't good enough for the family. The same family you've been supporting for years. My phone buzzed. Aunt Maeve. June finally made the move. How's it going? Why are you here? I asked June directly. Because I'm having a baby. Her hand rested on her bump. A little girl. And I don't want her growing up thinking it's okay to treat people the way we treated you. I don't want her learning that success should be punished, or that money matters more than honesty. Pretty words. I'm not asking for money. She stepped closer. I'm asking for a chance to be a better sister, a better aunt to my daughter. I'm asking if it's too late to start over. And mother, she'll have to figure out her own way back, if there is one. I studied her face, the dark circles under her eyes, the worry lines that hadn't been there before. The silver rattle, I said suddenly. What? The shower gift you dismissed. Do you know why I chose it? She shook her head. Grandma Margaret used it to soothe us both when we were babies. Remember how she'd tell us that story about how it was the only thing that would calm you down during thunderstorms? June's eyes filled with tears. I didn't even look at it properly. I was too busy trying to hurt you. Well, it worked. I'm so sorry, Cora. She reached for my hand. For everything. For years of everything. I let her hold my hand for a moment before pulling away. Sorry doesn't fix credit scores. I know, she moved toward the door. But maybe it's a start. As she reached for the handle, I spoke. The rattle's still in my closet. She turned, hope flickering across her face. I'm not saying I forgive you, I continued. But maybe we can talk. About the baby. About starting over. Really? Don't make me regret it. She nodded, tears falling freely now. Thank you. After she left, I texted Aunt Maeve. June just left. She came alone. And maybe there's hope for one bridge not to burn completely. What about Aurora? I looked at the family photo, still sitting on my shelf, taken years ago, when success meant nothing and family meant everything. Some bridges, I typed back, need to stay ashes. The silver rattle caught the morning light as my niece's tiny fingers wrapped around it. She had mother's eyes, but thankfully none of her temperament. She hasn't cried once since you gave it to her, June said from the hospital bed. The nurses can't believe it. Grandma Margaret was right. I adjusted the baby's blanket. Magic rattle. Franklin entered with coffee, looking more relaxed than he had in months. His firm had kept him on after he'd taken full responsibility for his part in the shower incident. Humility, apparently, went a long way. Your mother's in the lobby, he said quietly. Again, June tensed. Did you tell her? Security's keeping her there. He handed me a cup. Your call, Cora. My phone buzzed. Aunt Maeve. Aurora's making quite a scene downstairs. Something about grandmother's rights. Let her make it, I replied, watching my niece drift to sleep. The past 3 months had been a study in consequences. Mother had indeed lost her house, moving into a small apartment that horrified her social circle. June and Franklin had started marriage counseling, working through the damage that financial stress and family dysfunction had caused. And I had learned to set boundaries. The trust fund set up, I told June, putting my coffee down. But the conditions stand. She nodded. No contact with mother until she completes therapy. No access to the money without financial counseling first. And we maintain separate holidays. She smiled sadly. No more forced family gatherings. The baby stirred, making those tiny noises that newborns do. Franklin took a photo, then showed me his phone. Mother pacing in the lobby, gesturing wildly at hospital staff. She'll never change, June said softly. No, I agreed. But we did. My phone lit up with messages from the family group chat I'd never left. Cousin Rachel, Aurora's posting about being banned from meeting her granddaughter. Should we tell her that's not how restraining orders work? Uncle Paul. Maybe she should have thought about that before threatening Cora at her office. Aunt Maeve. The therapy appointments are paid for. She's choosing not to go. I muted the chat and focused on the baby. She had June's nose, Franklin's chin, and hopefully none of the family's talent for emotional manipulation. I've been thinking, June said, adjusting her position. About names. Please tell me you're not still considering Aurora Jr. No. She exchanged looks with Franklin. We were thinking, Margaret, after Grandma. The rattle clinked softly as the baby moved. She'd like that, I said finally. And June hesitated. We want you to be godmother. You sure? I might be too busy with my cold, calculating career. That's why we want you. Franklin sat on the bed's edge, Someone needs to teach her that success isn't a character flaw. A commotion outside drew our attention. Mother's voice carried through the door. "I demand to see my granddaughter." Security responded quickly. Through the window, we watched them escort her out, her designer knockoff bag swinging wildly as she protested. "You know what's sad?" June cradled little Margaret closer. "She could be here right now. All she had to do was get help." Some people prefer their pride to their peace. I picked up the rattle, its silver surface reflecting our small group. But that's not our problem anymore. My phone buzzed one last time. "Herbert, Aurora's threatening to contest the restraining order again." "Let her," I typed back. "Some battles aren't worth winning when you've already won the war." June touched my arm. "Thank you, not just for the trust fund or the baby stuff, for giving me a chance to be better." "Us," Franklin corrected. "A chance for us to be better." Little Margaret yawned, completely unaware of the family drama swirling around her. She'd grow up knowing a different kind of love, one that didn't come with price tags or conditions. "Want to hold her again?" June asked. I took my niece, feeling her warm weight settle against my chest. The rattle chimed softly as I rocked her. "You know," I said, "Grandma Margaret used to say something about family, that it's not about who's blood and who isn't. It's about who stays when the money's gone and the masks come off." "Sounds wise," Franklin said. She was. I watched Margaret's eyes flutter closed, and she'd be proud of us, not for the success or the money, but for finally learning what real family means. Outside, Mother's car peeled away from the hospital parking lot, leaving only tire marks and wounded pride behind. But inside this room, with the silver rattle catching sunlight and new beginnings taking shape, we had everything we needed. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you're born into. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well, loving better, and letting go.
Hello, I made a breakfast soup this morning, but it didn't turn out as well as I'd hoped. It's rather thin and lacking in flavor. Could we try making it a bit thicker next time? However, we should be mindful of the salt content since my doctor has advised me to limit my intake. But honestly, I do enjoy bold tastes. Speaking of preferences, my mother-in-law, Brittany, is quite particular about her food. She likes it heavily seasoned, even though her health isn't the best. She's a bit overweight and on the verge of diabetes. Her doctor has warned her about her diet, but she doesn't seem concerned and often adds extra seasoning to the dishes I prepare. It's surprising how much salt and pepper she sprinkles on, regardless of the health-conscious spices I use. It never seems to satisfy her, and I'm genuinely worried about her health if she continues this way. It's challenging dealing with Brittany. She tends to be critical and difficult. My name is Diana. I'm 31 years old, and besides working, I manage our home. I've been married for 4 years, and we don't have children. The issue is that I'm unable to have children, and Brittany never lets me forget it. She often tells me that as a woman, my inability to bear children makes me less valuable, and that I should be grateful just for being allowed in the house. We've tried many times, and I've been through numerous treatments, but nothing has worked. It's both physically and emotionally draining, so I've decided to stop the treatments. They're costly, and continuing without any guarantee of success is difficult. My husband once mentioned that investing in fertility treatments felt pointless. This whole situation weighs heavily on me, especially when my husband echoes his mother's harsh words, agreeing that my inability to conceive somehow makes me less complete. Despite everything, I've always wanted a baby, but now I think it might be time to accept and find peace with our circumstances. Despite my husband urging me to conceive quickly, the pressure only added to my stress. I couldn't just get pregnant because it was expected of me, and after ceasing the fertility treatments, I contemplated finding joy just with my husband. However, my mother-in-law kept her hopes for a grandchild alive, often nudging me about it. She even went as far as buying diapers and flaunting them in front of me, proclaiming, "Look, I got diapers. You'll need them one day." In response, I quipped, "Aren't those a bit small for you, Brittany?" To which she replied excitedly, "These are for a baby, can't you see?" I retorted sarcastically, "Well, I wouldn't know. I'm the broken woman who can't have kids." That comment upset her, and she stormed off to her room. I was relieved when she left, already exhausted from work and not in the mood to handle her harsh remarks. It seems her favorite pastime is making my life difficult. We moved in with my in-laws after my father-in-law passed away a year ago. It was a hard time for her, and around then, her doctor had also warned her about her risk of diabetes. We moved in to support her, but despite her condition, she's okay as long as she adheres to her medications and maintains a proper diet. Yet, she often neglects her meds and eats whatever she likes, risking her health further. Honestly, I dread the thought of being responsible for her care. I'm still in my 20s, working full-time, and it's already a lot handling everything. The following day, which was my day off, I was busy with household chores. Usually my mother-in-law spends her time lounging on the sofa with snacks, but unexpectedly, she got up and wandered into my room. I didn't want her in there. My hands were full, so I didn't object when my mother-in-law said she had cleaned my room. "Thanks," I replied, though I felt a twinge of suspicion. "You know, if you leave your room messy, you'll attract bugs," she joked. I managed a smile and said, "Sure, enjoy your clean room," still unsure about her true intentions. It seemed she took my response as gratitude, which only made her actions seem more dubious. I couldn't shake the feeling she was scheming something. That evening, I decided to sleep in my husband's room. He had been away on business since the previous day and wouldn't be back soon. Even if he found out, I knew he wouldn't mind. We usually slept in separate rooms because of my nursing job, which has regular hours and occasional night shifts. Our relationship had also grown a bit distant, but mainly, I didn't want to disturb him with my coming and going at odd hours. After ensuring my mother-in-law had retired to her room, I slipped into my husband's room, thinking, "She's in her room, now I can finally get some rest." I ended up spending 3 nights there. My mother-in-law, however, started to grow suspicious of my upbeat demeanor. She began asking odd questions. "Are you sure you're not feeling any discomfort or anything?" she inquired one day. I dodged her gaze and responded, "What do you mean?" She dropped the subject abruptly, but it was clear she was pondering something. Later that day, as she ate her meal alone, I prepared to relax at home before my night shift. Relaxing, however, isn't much of an option with my mother-in-law around. She seldom assists with any household chores and prefers to direct me on what to do, making it hard to truly unwind. While my mother-in-law lounged on the couch, munching on snacks and absorbed in her manga aimed at women, I couldn't help but suspect she was plotting her next move to rile me up. I glanced at the comic's cover. It was titled, "Epic Mother and Daughter-in-Law Swamp Battle." I rolled my eyes at her dramatic choice of reading material. My husband finally returned from his business trip, arriving home late at around 9 p.m., looking utterly exhausted. "I'm going to take a bath," he declared. "Sure, I'll heat it for you. Have a beer while you wait," I suggested. He was about to agree, but then I added, "Actually, it's not safe to drink alcohol before a bath." He sighed and opted for a non-alcoholic beer instead, following my caution about the risks of mixing alcohol with hot water. I thought it was common sense, especially since even saunas have signs warning against entering while intoxicated, but it seems common sense isn't so common in my household. After his bath, my husband started singing loudly. We live in a single-family home, but with it being late, I worried about the neighbors. "Hey, you're too loud," I called out. "Shut it. You're the one being loud," he shot back. I quietly urged him to stop, but then my mother-in-law intervened, walking into the bathroom area to defend him. "What's wrong with that?" she challenged. "You don't know how to treat your husband, do you? Always so inconsiderate and complaining," she scolded me. "I'm not the one always complaining, Brittany," I retorted. "You're definitely not cute. Not that you're a beauty to begin with," she sneered back. I shrugged it off, replying, That's okay with me. I probably look like a knockout beauty in some other country. No worries. Afterward, my husband finished his bath and started drinking. It was already 9:40 p.m., and I needed to head out for my shift at the hospital. Even though it was close by, there was a lot to prepare for a busy night ahead. As I prepared to leave for work a bit early, I mentioned to my husband, "By the way, I've been sleeping in your room. Would you mind using mine tonight? My clothes are scattered everywhere." He casually responded, "Sure, it doesn't matter to me." "Okay, I'm heading out then. Take care," I whispered to him, trying to keep my voice low so Brittany wouldn't overhear. Just as I reached for my bag to leave, I heard my husband let out a loud groan. I turned around to see him curled up on the floor, clutching his leg and groaning in pain. His face contorted with agony, and Brittany's face went pale as she started to panic. "What's happening? Speak!" she demanded, but he was too pained to respond. I felt a rush of adrenaline, knowing I needed to act fast, but then I noticed something odd. The floor was unusually slippery. Even in my socks, I felt like I could easily slip. "What on earth is this?" I exclaimed, looking at both my husband and Brittany. "Brittany, what did you do?" "I didn't do anything. It's not my fault," Brittany protested quickly. Realizing that blaming anyone at that moment wouldn't help, I immediately called for an ambulance. My husband was taken straight to the hospital where I work, and suddenly, work became the last thing on my mind. At the hospital, he continued to clutch his leg, sweating and writhing in pain. "It hurts so bad. Hang in there, please," I pleaded, watching him suffer. Thankfully, a doctor quickly examined him and managed to relieve some of our fears. His leg was indeed broken, a 5th metatarsal fracture, just as we suspected after he slipped on that slick floor. His foot was visibly swollen, a typical symptom of this kind of fracture, usually caused by tripping or putting too much weight on the foot. Speaking from personal experience, I recalled my similar injury. Years ago, I had twisted my ankle falling down the stairs. I was lost in my music, not paying attention, and heard a loud snap followed by intense pain. I too was diagnosed with a 5th metatarsal fracture. It was quite an embarrassing memory, but it came flooding back as I saw my husband in a similar kind of distress. I ended up lying to my close friends about my husband's injury because he didn't need to stay at the hospital after his fracture was confirmed. He could come home. On that day, I was scheduled for a night shift, but my nursing supervisor insisted I take the night off. The injury wasn't life-threatening, but she seemed genuinely concerned for us. Later, while resting, my husband remarked, "I survived, but now I've got a fever." I replied, "Well, you did break your leg, so a fever isn't too surprising, but I'm wondering why the floor was so slippery. Maybe we should ask Brittany about that." Curious and a bit wary, I approached Brittany. "Hey, what did you do to the floor in the room?" Her response startled me. "Well, the floor was slippery because I slipped and fell. I could have seriously hurt myself," my husband interjected. Brittany then shockingly admitted, "That room is meant for my daughter-in-law, so I greased the floor. I was hoping she would slip, so I put a lot of grease on the floor. I never expected you to go in there and slip." I was flabbergasted. "Unbelievable," I exclaimed. It turns out my mother-in-law had intentionally greased the floor, hoping I would fall. Although she claimed to have cleaned the room, her actual intention was to harm me. I was furious. If I had entered that room, I could have been seriously injured. Breaking a leg would be the least of my worries. Hitting my head could have been fatal. My mother-in-law's actions were practically criminal. "You're despicable. You're not even family to me anymore. I got seriously hurt because of you. I'm going to the police," I declared. In a desperate attempt to deflect blame, Brittany retorted, "Wait a minute, I didn't directly cause any harm, did I? Your wife is the one to blame. She told you to enter her room, didn't she? So this is all her fault." "Shut up, that's not the point. You're getting arrested," my husband said as he furiously dialed the police. In a frantic attempt to prevent him from calling, my mother-in-law tried to snatch the phone away. Despite the chaos unfolding around him and a broken leg, my husband clung to his phone, speaking urgently with the police. I found myself wishing I were anywhere but here, perhaps at work or even in a hospital, instead of entangled in this distressing situation. I knew it wouldn't be long before our neighbors heard about the ordeal, particularly since I was nearly injured as well. I considered involving the police myself. It was uncertain, but she might face charges of attempted assault. Yet, as I voiced this idea, Brittany protested, "Wait, now I don't want to involve the police." "Really? You knew what could happen when you chose this path. Did you think you could erase me from existence?" I retorted sharply. "I did hope it would be simpler if he just vanished," Brittany admitted, shockingly indifferent. "Wow, that's appalling. You're downright criminal in your thinking. Personally, I wish they'd lock you away forever," sneered N. "That's it. Let's get a divorce," I declared resolutely. "What? I can't continue living this way. If I stay, it might put my life at risk someday. Your moral compass is so skewed, I can't bear it any longer," I explained. "Wait, please, let's not end our marriage over this," my husband implored. "After you've demeaned and insulted me, do you even understand how much that hurt?" I replied. "I don't need you. I'm quite capable on my own," I asserted confidently. "No, I need you. I was counting on your income. I even went ahead and signed a contract for the Honda Century I've always wanted from Japan," my husband protested. "I don't care about that anymore," I said with resolve. I cleaned the grimy floor and quickly gathered my belongings. Stuffing essentials into my carry-on, I removed my wedding ring, set it on the table, and began searching through a shelf full of dishes for the divorce papers. "Ah, found them. The divorce papers you wrote up before. Remember? You said if I couldn't have a child within 3 years, we'd divorce." "Well, thanks. I can't have children now," I concluded, sealing my decision as I prepared to leave the turmoil behind. Holding the divorce papers firmly in my hand, I declared, "So, let's divorce." I added, feeling a mix of relief and resolve. "You must feel relieved now." "What about the loan for my Century?" my husband asked, referring to his cherished car. "Who cares?" I replied dismissively. I left the house and headed straight to the hospital. The compassionate charge nurse didn't need to ask many questions. She seemed to understand that I had my reasons. Being a nurse, I knew I could support myself without relying on a husband. I wondered why I had tolerated poor treatment and mean comments from my in-laws for so long. The entire situation seemed absurd, so I decided to focus solely on my job and put the past behind me. The next morning, I officially filed for divorce and he became my ex-husband. Given the emotional turmoil he caused, I consulted a lawyer about seeking compensation. In the end, my ex-husband was ordered to pay me, and I couldn't help but think, serves you right. Since the police got involved, the neighbors started avoiding my mother-in-law. She had openly discussed why my ex-husband had broken his bone, casting her in a negative light. Everyone now saw her as a terrible parent. Eventually, my ex-husband distanced himself from her and seemingly kicked her out. Though there was a survivor's benefit program, it didn't pay much. She lamented that living alone was impossible. Given her love for food, our previous grocery bills had been exorbitant, so adjusting to a modest lifestyle on just the survivor's benefit was challenging for her. As for my ex-husband, I lost interest in whatever happened to him. He had mentioned taking out a car loan, but I assumed he wouldn't be able to afford it on his salary. He had taken me for granted, expecting me to contribute financially, which had been a significant annoyance. Despite not being particularly affluent, he was the type to make impulsive purchases like a new car. Later, I started dating a doctor from the hospital. 3 years after that, we got married and were blessed with a child, which felt like a miracle after everything I had been through. From now on, I'm committed to doing my best for my family, cherishing each moment and the new beginnings we've created together. Jerry spoke with confidence. "I was the one who built that house, so it rightfully belongs to me. You'll need to move out. Given that we're separating and considering your part-time income, I doubt you'll manage on your own." He let out a laugh as he presented her with the divorce papers. "My name is Nancy, and I'm 35 years old. I recently started a part-time job at a local supermarket. I met Jerry at work 4 years ago, and we both decided to quit our jobs when we got married. Initially, I was keen to continue working, but Jerry preferred that I stay at home, so I became a full-time housewife. Even though I miss working, I eventually found myself longing to return to work. After many discussions, I managed to secure a part-time position. Jerry and I have been trying to start a family but haven't had any luck yet. I also really wanted a cat, but Jerry dislikes cats, so I had to let go of that idea. Initially, Jerry was content with me staying home, but he became increasingly upset when I started working part-time. He began to nitpick everything at home. "You went to work again today, huh? It looks like the house is getting messier. Are the clothes all wrinkled in the laundry? You're not keeping up with the housework," Jerry would complain. That wasn't true. I had finished all the cleaning before going to work, and the laundry was done perfectly. "What are you talking about? I'm doing everything just as I used to. It's clean, can't you see?" I responded, frustrated by his accusations. He even complained about the meals. "Fried chicken again? Can't you cook something different?" he grumbled. I didn't even make fried chicken that often and tried to keep our meals varied, especially since I knew it was his favorite. "I put effort into making your favorite fried chicken, and I make a variety of dishes," I defended myself. But every time I tried to explain, he just got angrier. "Are you saying you're too busy because of your part-time job? You're just pretending to be busy. Don't act like your job is important when it barely pays anything," he scolded. "You're only working because you're selfish. Your earnings were fine to begin with. Make sure you do the housework properly. Don't make excuses about not having time. It's embarrassing to work so hard for such a low wage." Jerry berated me, insisting that he wanted me to be a housewife so people wouldn't think we were struggling financially. His words were harsh and hurtful, reflecting his dissatisfaction with my desire to work. Jerry constantly belittled my part-time job, boasting about how his earnings were more than enough to cover our expenses. Being subjected to such cruel words every day was unbearable and often left me furious. However, an opportunity to step away came when we decided to visit Jerry's parents, whom we hadn't seen in a while. Despite my ongoing annoyance with Jerry, I welcomed the change of scenery. After a few hours' drive, we arrived at his mother's house, where she lives alone. She greeted us warmly, and after a dinner she prepared, Jerry left to play slot machines, leaving me to wash the dishes with my mother-in-law. Her demeanor suddenly changed. She wasn't as calm as before, and her face grew serious. As I made coffee, she sat down next to me with a grave look. "Nancy, according to Jerry, you're working part-time. Why do you need to work when he has a good job? Also, he says you're neglecting the housework because of your job," she stated, catching me off guard. "That's not true. I'm managing everything just fine," I replied, surprised by her sudden confrontation. "Oh," my mother-in-law continued, a look of disbelief on her face. "I've heard from Jerry about how poorly you handle the housework. There's no point in lying. He's been dealing with it all by himself. He's exhausted from work, and sadly he has to come home to a messy house. You're not cooking proper meals, are you? Quit that part-time job. Your workplace won't miss you. They can find someone else. Your job is to take care of the house. Focus on supporting Jerry properly from now on, and don't embarrass yourself as Jerry's wife." Her words reflected deep-seated traditional beliefs. She had married right after school, never worked a day, and fully embraced her role as a full-time housewife. Jerry was raised in a home where the wife's duty was strictly domestic, influencing his expectations of our marriage. However, my mother-in-law's harsh words deeply wounded me. At my part-time job, I felt supported and valued, a stark contrast to what I experienced at home. It was a positive environment where I felt appreciated and relied upon. Hearing such dismissive and demeaning talk about myself, suggesting I was useless, was heartbreaking. My efforts at work and home were significant, and it pained me to be so misunderstood and undervalued. Learning that my mother-in-law, who knew nothing about my job, had been fed lies about me by Jerry was a shock. Despite my efforts to maintain our home meticulously alongside my part-time job, I was disheartened to discover that Jerry had been disparaging me behind my back. I was working harder than ever, conscious of the demands of Jerry's job and trying my best to support him. However, overhearing him and his mother speak poorly of me over the phone was a bitter pill to swallow. Initially, I found it hard to accept and felt deeply hurt. In the following days, as I grappled with these revelations, my thoughts turned to my father. Since my mother's passing, he had been living alone in our family home, which was a fair distance away. I hadn't seen him recently due to my busy schedule, but needing some comfort, I decided to call him. Usually he answered promptly, but that day the phone rang longer than usual, heightening my worries until he finally picked up. "Nancy, it's been a while. Are you well?" he asked in his calm voice, which immediately brought me some relief, though tears welled up in my eyes. "What happened? It took you a long time to pick up. If you're busy, I can call back later," I managed to say. "No, I'm sorry," he replied. "I recently fell down the stairs and hurt my back. I can't move around much now, but don't worry about me. I'll be okay soon. By the way, what's going on? Is everything okay?" His admission shocked me. My dad, who had always been so active, had suffered a fall and injured his back. "No, I'm okay. Just make sure you take care of yourself and get better soon. I'll come to visit you soon, so wait for me," I assured him. "Yeah, I'm okay," he said, but his situation lingered in my mind. Now considered elderly, his recovery might be slow, and the risk of further injury was a real concern. The thought of him navigating the steep stairs in our old family home, especially the tall steps at the entrance and in the bathroom, made me worry even more. The fear of him getting seriously hurt was too much to bear. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I started to think how beneficial it would be to live closer to him, to be there when he needed help, or simply to ensure he was safe. This idea, once a mere wish, now seemed like a necessary plan to pursue. Realizing the urgency of the situation, I decided to build a safer, more accessible home for my dad nearby. I had some funds that came from managing apartments left to me by my grandfather. Originally intended for my dad's use, he had transferred them to my name as a precaution, advising me to keep them from my husband. All the rental income had been saved up over the years, and I planned to use this money to construct a new home for my father. The thought of providing such a meaningful gift filled me with joy, especially since I felt I hadn't been able to support him as much as I wanted in the past. Building the house would be a costly endeavor, and I couldn't keep it a secret from Jerry. Nervously, I brought up the topic, worried about his reaction. To my surprise, he seemed understanding at first. "I understand it makes sense to get him a new house considering his age. If you think you can handle it, go for it. Just don't expect me to help if things get tough," he said. His dismissive tone stung, but I chose not to retaliate. Avoiding an argument made things simpler, and I immediately started looking for a reliable contractor and initiated the construction process. However, it seemed like Jerry wasn't truly on board with the idea. He didn't voice his displeasure, but his silence was uncharacteristic. Jerry usually spoke his mind. My suspicions were confirmed when a shocking discovery at the bank left me reeling. I found out that $5,000 had been withdrawn from our account, all at once. I couldn't recall authorizing such a large transaction, and there was only one other person who could have made it. That night, I confronted Jerry. "I noticed today at the bank that $5,000 was missing from our living expenses. Do you know anything about this?" I asked. Jerry's response was arrogant and dismissive. "I gave it to my mother. You said you were building a house, so you must have been saving up somewhere, right? $5,000 isn't a big deal." I was astonished by his rationale. "Why would you give her that money? Your mother isn't struggling, and that money was meant for our daily needs. It's not fair to take such a significant amount without discussing it with me first." His casual misuse of our funds and lack of communication was not only irresponsible but also deeply unfair. The situation highlighted a growing rift over financial priorities and respect within our marriage. During our heated argument, Jerry retorted sharply, "What do you know about my mother? She said she needed help. What's wrong with a son helping his mother? Besides, that money was earned by me. How I use it is none of your business. If it bothers you, try earning as much as I do with your part-time job. You can't say anything now, can you? Don't ever complain about what I do again." With that, he stormed out of the room. I had always trusted Jerry, despite his harsh demeanor, and wished he had discussed the matter with me first. Perhaps there could have been a way to help his mother without sparking such a dispute. Did he think I would object, or did he simply not trust me? Our marriage, which should have brought us closer, seemed only to be driving a wedge between us. Jerry saw no issue with using the money without my consent, and the next day he acted as if nothing had happened, heading to work after breakfast as usual. I remained silent, not wanting to ignite another argument, but I was left with a lingering sense of unease. Meanwhile, the construction of the new house for my dad was completed despite the troubles at home. The construction company was incredibly supportive, and I managed to create a beautiful home for him. As moving day approached, I hired movers to help pack his belongings, ensuring he wouldn't strain himself during the move. With just 3 weeks left until he could move in, I was brimming with excitement at the thought of doing something so special for him. However, as we discussed the moving plans, Jerry dropped a bombshell. "Hey, that house isn't for your dad. It's going to be for my mom. I have the right to decide who lives in the house I helped build, so it's going to be my mom," he declared firmly. I was stunned and responded in a mix of shock and defiance. "I built that house. It's for my dad. There's no way you, with your part-time job, could have built it. It's my money that paid for it, so don't act so entitled." It seemed Jerry genuinely believed that it was his money that had financed the house. When we had initially discussed building the house, he appeared supportive of the idea, but now it was clear he had always intended for it to benefit his mother, not my dad. This revelation was deeply unfair, and now I found myself having to prove that the funds used were indeed mine, a situation I had hoped to avoid. Realizing I needed to be honest about the rental income I had secretly saved, I decided to come clean with Jerry. "You're making up stories just because you want the house for yourself. If you're going to lie, at least make it believable," he scoffed, completely disbelieving me. He stormed off, leaving me bewildered, but I knew I had to help him understand the truth. When Jerry returned, his anger had visibly escalated. "You tried to trick me saying you built that house. You're a liar. That house is mine because I helped build it. You need to leave, even if we break up. I don't think you can survive on your part-time salary," he spat out. His words left me speechless. The house was the result of my hard work and savings, and his demand for me to leave was shocking. "Sign this and get out tonight," he laughed cruelly, slamming divorce papers on the table before heading to his room. The papers were already filled out on his part. After constantly demeaning me, presenting the divorce papers like that was a new low. Perhaps he thought that threatening divorce would pressure me into caving and letting his mother move into the house. However, little did he know, I had enough money to live independently. This was the final straw. I signed the papers, submitted them, packed my bags, and left for my dad's house. My dad was surprised to see me arrive with so much luggage all of a sudden, but welcomed me warmly. After explaining everything, he patted my back and said, "You've been through a lot. You can stay with me in the new house. That would make me happy." Moving day arrived, and everything went smoothly with my presence. We successfully moved in without any issues. I found it strange that my ex-husband hadn't reached out after the dramatic scene claiming the house was his, but I chose not to dwell on it, wanting to move past thinking about someone I was now divorced from. However, a few days after settling into our new home with my father, something unbelievable happened. There was a commotion outside, and when I looked out the window, I saw a big moving truck parked outside. Confused, I rushed outside to talk to the movers and figure out what was happening. It turned out that the customer was my ex-husband, attempting to take possession of the house he had claimed was not mine. It became clear that Jerry and his mother planned to move into the house where my father and I were already living. Given our recent divorce, Jerry was practically a stranger to me now, and their attempt to forcefully take over the house was unsettling. The thought of Jerry's aggressive behavior instilled a deep fear in me. I quickly explained the situation to the confused movers and asked them to halt their work. Then, I turned to my father and called the police. I explained everything to them, and they confirmed that since the house was legally mine and Jerry and I were divorced, he had no right to enter the property. His presence there would be considered trespassing. When Jerry and his mother arrived, they were met by the police and were visibly panicked. The reality of the situation seemed to finally hit Jerry. Amidst the chaos of his mother's distress and the police's interrogation, he lost his composure and shouted, "What's going on? Why can't I live in this house?" Seeing him in such a state, I realized that dealing with someone like him was no longer an option. To protect my father and myself, I provided the police with crucial evidence. Thankfully, the situation was brought under control with the police's intervention. Later, I learned that Jerry faced severe consequences for his actions. In his determination to move into the house, he canceled his apartment lease and sold his mother's house, leaving them with nowhere to go. The movers charged him a breach of contract fee, and with a truck full of belongings, Jerry and his mother found themselves stranded on the street. The final piece of evidence I gave to the police was footage of the verbal abuse Jerry had subjected me to. Unable to endure his abusive language any longer, I installed surveillance cameras to record everything. The footage clearly showed me diligently handling housework while enduring his harsh treatment. This evidence was pivotal in demonstrating the extent of his mistreatment and supported my case against him. While Jerry continued to hurl unreasonable abuse at me, I used the evidence I had collected to press my case further. I hired a lawyer and took legal action against him, ultimately securing a settlement. The costs from the moving chaos and the settlement severely depleted the funds he had obtained from selling his mother's house, as well as his savings. As a result, Jerry and his mother ended up living in a rundown apartment. News of Jerry's troubles quickly spread at his workplace. His colleagues, recognizing the flaws in his character, began distancing themselves. Now, Jerry is isolated and looked down upon by everyone at the company. As for me, life has taken a much brighter turn. I finally adopted a cat, which has brought me immense joy. My father's back has fully healed, and we are now planning a trip with the cat. I also used the settlement money to open a shop specializing in cat products. Although the start was challenging and there were setbacks, the business has steadily improved and the shop is now thriving. Every day is peaceful and enjoyable, and I'm truly happy with the new direction my life has taken. I never imagined that standing up for my father would lead to such positive changes, but I'm convinced it was the right decision. Recently, there has been another happy development. A man who frequently visits my shop, always chatting warmly and being kind to both people and cats, has become a special part of my life. We've made plans to go for a drive together. I'm looking forward to living freely and embracing the new happiness that is on the horizon.
Hello, I'm Bella, and I'm 31 years old. I currently stay at home managing our household duties. My husband, Jerry, who is 4 years my senior, and I have been living with his parents, Henry and Marilyn, for the past 3 years. Both in their 60s, Henry and Marilyn are vigorous and healthy. Marilyn, Jerry's mother, is particularly sociable and enjoys an active social life. Since moving in, I've noticed that Marilyn rarely participates in household chores, despite not having a job outside the home. Previously, she was a stay-at-home mom, but now she largely leaves the domestic responsibilities to me. Occasionally, Marilyn encourages me to take some time for myself, yet she criticizes me if everything isn't perfect upon her return. I've tried to discuss this with her, explaining that I might not be able to complete all tasks before she leaves, but she dismisses my concerns. She often remarks that handling numerous chores is normal and criticizes my generation for not managing as well as hers did. Moreover, Marilyn frequently praises Jerry, especially proud of his job at a prominent company, and often points out that while Jerry works hard, she feels I do not measure up. This comparison has become her go-to comment. Jerry's reaction doesn't help. During meals, when Marilyn complains about my efforts, he merely responds with an indifferent, "Oh, really?" which shows little support. Initially, I admired Jerry for his maturity given his age, but now I often feel relegated to the role of a housekeeper, even when I work tirelessly into the night. The situation has become increasingly challenging, and I wish Jerry would stand up for me more, as it seems he does not see the extent of my contribution to our home. He doesn't confront me directly. Instead, he tosses laundry at me, aiming for my face, and curtly tells me to handle that too. I regret marrying him because he's changed so much since our wedding. On our first anniversary, he brought home a cake, but then playfully smashed a pie in my face and laughed about it. It's hard to believe he's an adult. However, there is one silver lining in my life. My father-in-law, Henry. He's incredibly serene and always checks to see if I need help with anything. He's the sole source of kindness I experience in this household. Since leaving my job to get married, Henry has become someone I can confide in. My affection for him has grown, and I've come to see him almost as a real father. However, Henry works during the day, which means I often spend a lot of time alone with Marilyn. While I can speak freely with Henry, Marilyn's demeanor towards me sours. She even began accusing me of flirting with my father-in-law simply because Jerry neglects me. She would hurl these accusations when Henry was out of earshot. I tried to deny it, but she dismissed my words, mockingly asking if she had touched a nerve, always ready with a biting retort. Our conversations never seemed to go anywhere. I brought up these issues with Jerry, hoping he might understand it was just Marilyn's unfounded suspicions, but he just laughed it off, joking that I was now interested in older men too. It was painfully clear that nothing would change. I never expected him to start doing chores or to stop Marilyn's mockery, but I also never imagined he would react like this. It was a significant shock, leaving me feeling increasingly out of place in their home. One summer day, Marilyn began discussing plans for a family trip during Jerry's summer break. Initially, I thought Marilyn's suggestion for a family trip was just her usual enthusiasm for outings, but then she caught me off guard by asking if I wanted to join. I hadn't expected an invitation and thought they might leave without me. When I hesitated, Marilyn's expression turned suspicious, and she questioned whether I wanted to go or not. Her sudden invitation made me uneasy. I couldn't figure out her motive, and I was worried about how she might react if I declined. That evening, Jerry brought up the trip again, seeming curious about whether I planned to attend. I mentioned I was invited, and his reaction took me by surprise. He burst out laughing. Confused and feeling more uncomfortable, I asked him why he found it funny, but he dismissed my question, claiming it was nothing. On the day of the trip, it was Jerry, Marilyn, and me in the car, with Jerry driving and Marilyn next to him while I sat in the back. Henry was unable to join us initially due to work commitments. As we drove, not being able to see their faces added to my anxiety. Midway, Marilyn inquired if I had withdrawn money for the trip, to which I confirmed I had taken out a few $100s. Her pleased reaction seemed peculiar to me. As we continued driving, I noticed we had bypassed the inn where we were supposed to stay. "Did we just pass the inn?" I asked. Jerry responded vaguely, mentioning there was a tourist spot ahead and that we'd check in after visiting it. His smile didn't reach his eyes, and I felt a sense of foreboding. The further we drove, the scenery became lusher and more isolated. I quietly sighed, ensuring neither Marilyn nor Jerry heard my concern. Eventually, we arrived at a small, secluded dam with hardly any people around. Marilyn suggested we get out and stretch our legs, while Jerry added a reminder to not leave anything valuable in the car.
I followed their instructions, stepping out into the unfamiliar surroundings, still trying to make sense of the day's unexpected developments. As I stepped out of the car and shut the door, I noticed Marilyn and Jerry hesitating, pretending to fiddle with something inside the car. Then I heard the click of the locks engaging, the windows were left only slightly open, and suddenly Jerry burst out laughing. Puzzled, I asked, "What's going on? Are we staying here for the night?" I felt a surge of anger toward Marilyn, but I managed to keep my composure. "What do you mean?" I asked, striving to maintain my cool. "You walked right into that one, didn't you?" Jerry replied, laughing so hard he had to clutch his stomach. My wallet and cell phone were still in the car. Everything had unfolded just as Marilyn and Jerry had planned. "Have fun out here, Bella," Marilyn sneered mockingly. "Maybe you can eat some grass and sleep under the stars." Jerry, still holding my wallet, riffled through it, then rolled up the window. Their laughter faded as they drove off, leaving me stranded. Standing alone, feeling the heat, I muttered to myself, "Well, this is just great." Despite the sweltering heat and the risk of dehydration, I surprisingly didn't panic. About an hour later, I found myself in the lobby of the inn where we were originally supposed to stay. "Why are you here?" Jerry exclaimed, shocked to see me as he entered the lobby. "Are you a ghost? Did something happen at the dam?" He looked utterly bewildered. Marilyn, who looked like she was on the verge of fainting, eyed me nervously. I considered playing along and pretending to be a ghost just to tease them, but decided against it. "I'm not a ghost and I'm staying here tonight," I told them, showing them the key to my room where I had already dropped off my luggage. Jerry couldn't make sense of the situation and started to get agitated. He thought I had taken the key to their room without permission. "What are you doing? Give it back," he demanded, reaching for the key aggressively. However, I was prepared for their antics this time, and I stood my ground, ready to confront whatever came next. Just then, a man stepped forward and firmly grasped my husband's hand. "Sir, please refrain from causing a disturbance here," he said with authority. He was about the same age as Henry, but with a stronger build and taller stature, which made him appear more commanding than my middle-aged, slightly overweight husband. "Who are you? Are you staff here? You can't just interfere with a guest like this. I'll sue you for assault," Marilyn shouted at the man who intervened. "I apologize for not introducing myself earlier. I am the owner of this inn," the man replied calmly. Upon hearing this, my husband quickly released my hand. I recognized the owner. Back in my college days, I had visited this area with friends during a summer break. It was an extremely hot day, and we got lost on our way to our accommodation. During our ordeal, we stumbled upon a girl who collapsed on the side of the road, Kelly, the owner's daughter. We immediately called for an ambulance and stayed with her until help arrived. The next day, the owner visited us at the inn where we were staying and thanked us profusely. "You saved my daughter's life, thank you so much," he had said. He also extended an invitation. "Next time you're in the area, please stay with us. You won't have to pay." Since then, my family and I have visited the inn several times, so I knew the owner quite well. As he addressed my husband and Marilyn, he remained polite, yet I could sense the undercurrent of anger in his demeanor. In fact, both the owner and I were aware of Marilyn and my husband's scheme from the beginning. 3 weeks ago, feeling suspicious about their sudden invitation for a trip, I decided to set up a voice recorder in the living room. I strategically placed it to capture conversations when my husband and Marilyn thought they were alone, like when I was taking a bath or doing laundry. When I stumbled upon their plan, it was utterly shocking. I heard my husband and Marilyn plotting over a recorded conversation. "Let's ditch Bella somewhere, it would be hilarious. How about near that gym, an hour's drive from the inn?" Realizing the gravity of their scheme, I immediately contacted the owner of the inn to inform him about what was unfolding. The owner was livid upon hearing this. Having once experienced his daughter collapsing in the heat, he felt a personal connection to my predicament and was even more perturbed by their callousness. With the situation clear to him, he meticulously arranged my pickup for today, just after my husband and Marilyn's car departed. Interestingly, the driver of the inn shuttle turned out to be Kelly, the very girl we had helped years ago. "I got my license, let's go for a drive," she exclaimed with excitement. Despite my initial surprise, I agreed, and we chatted happily, even stopping to buy some local specialty ice cream on the way back to the inn. Even though I knew about the plan and that a pickup was coming, I was still worried. But Kelly, knowing the area exceptionally well, expertly navigated, and we arrived at the inn significantly before my husband and Marilyn. "You mentioned suing earlier, ma'am," the inn owner said, addressing Marilyn with a stern look. "Yes, I did. It's outrageous to be accused of the opposite," Marilyn snapped back defiantly. "I'm sorry, but you're not our guests," the owner responded firmly. "What? Don't mess with us." My husband and Marilyn both lost their tempers simultaneously. "Your reservations have been canceled," the owner stated plainly. "And who do you think you are?" My husband blustered, on the verge of another outburst, but the owner held him back. "Bella did nothing wrong. We at the inn canceled your reservations," the owner explained calmly. "What do you mean?" my husband demanded. "If you leave a woman alone at a dam in the mountains after stealing her wallet, wouldn't you be committing a crime?" The owner posed rhetorically, emphasizing the gravity of their actions. "We cannot permit such behavior at our inn," the owner declared, and he revealed that he had already called the police. My husband and Marilyn became even more incensed at this revelation. "This is no joke. You can't treat us this way. I work for a respected company," my husband protested, as if his job should afford him special treatment at this quaint mountain inn. Just then, Henry arrived, immediately sensing the tension. "Hey, what's going on here?" he asked, surveying the scene. Marilyn and my husband quickly tried to spin the story, accusing the inn staff of rudeness and claiming they wanted to stay elsewhere. However, when Henry was briefed on the actual events, he became enraged, a side of him I'd never seen before. "You idiots!" he yelled, clearly embarrassed. "I can't believe we're from the same family. You two get out of here now!" My husband and mother-in-law were stunned by Henry's outburst. "Where to? Another inn?" they asked, bewildered. But Henry was resolute. "You're disowned. Get out." "No, don't make me say it again," he commanded, pushing my husband away. As the police arrived, my husband and Marilyn's complexions turned ashen. The owner and I explained the entire scenario to the officer, and I played back the recorded conversation. My husband and Marilyn began to cry, but Henry interjected sharply. "Quiet down, you're disturbing the inn. Officer, please take them away." "It's not like that, officer. We didn't think it would be such a big deal. It was just a prank," my husband tried to explain. But the officer's expression hardened. "A prank? Are you serious? Don't you realize that your little joke could have put someone's life at risk, especially your own wife's?" They were scolded harshly, though they weren't arrested due to the familial nature of the matter. Marilyn and my husband looked pale throughout the ordeal. "This isn't over. Bella's feelings will determine your future. Understand?" With those final words, they left, still visibly shaken. Henry, who seemed apologetic for not intervening sooner, stayed behind to ensure everything was settled. Henry repeatedly expressed his remorse. "I'm sorry. I can't apologize enough for not noticing the unpleasant experiences you have been having and the terrible ordeal you went through today." He also extended a deep apology to the inn owner for the trouble caused by his family's actions. Interestingly, it turned out that the inn owner, who also runs several other businesses, is a client of the company where Henry works. Unaware of this connection, my husband had earlier boasted about his position at a prominent company, adding another layer of embarrassment to the situation. I was relieved that I had uncovered my husband and Marilyn's plan in time, but it was also a sobering reminder of what might have happened if I hadn't been vigilant. I hoped that being reprimanded by the police would help them realize the gravity of their actions. After returning from the inn, I decided to divorce my husband and sought a significant settlement, hoping this experience would be a lesson for them to refrain from hurting anyone else. In a surprising twist, Henry and Marilyn also ended up divorcing. Henry severed all ties with my ex-husband, kicking him out of the house because of the incident. Furthermore, my ex-husband was advised to resign from his job, as his behavior at work had also been problematic for some time. Just as he had mistreated me, he had been harsh with his colleagues and engineers, and the HR department had already been contemplating action against him. Reflecting on my actions, I was disappointed that I had, to some extent, mirrored such negative behavior. Now unemployed, my ex-husband struggled to find another job. Despite his age, he lacked a solid track record for managerial positions at his previous company and found it difficult to explain his departure. Marilyn, too, was kicked out by Henry and sought refuge with relatives, returning to her parents' home. These developments marked a significant turn of events, highlighting the consequences of their actions and the importance of integrity in both personal and professional life. Concerns linger about Marilyn's penchant for spending and traveling. Her relatives worry she might deplete their savings if she were to move in with them. Given that she's still in good health, it might be prudent for her to consider securing a part-time job to support herself and mitigate such concerns. Meanwhile, I've moved out of my in-laws' house and now live independently nearby. I maintain a friendship with Henry and occasionally seek his advice on work-related issues. This marks a new chapter in my life, a shift from my previous role managing household duties and caring for children to embracing new professional opportunities. During my job search, the owner of a company reached out to me. Aware of my recent challenges, he expressed concern and offered me a position at his firm. It seemed he was eager to help me find a stable footing within his organization. I accepted his offer with gratitude, touched by his kindness. In our conversations, he insisted that his company was the one grateful to have me. It felt like a full-circle moment, repaying a past favor, and now it was my turn to contribute positively. The company he introduced me to is well known and highly regarded for its treatment of employees, a pleasant surprise indeed. Interestingly, this company operates in the same industry that my ex-husband used to boast about, yet it's significantly larger. Everyone at my new workplace is friendly, making my daily experiences far more enjoyable than the times marred by marital strife. This new beginning has been invigorating, allowing me to leave behind the past and look forward to a promising future. Hello, my name is Patricia, and I share my life with my husband Dennis and our delightful 3-year-old son Eric. Today marks the 3rd anniversary of when Dennis and I first began dating. Today's a special day, isn't it? Dennis mentioned, breaking a long silence. His voice carried a different tone today, and I couldn't help but notice. Yes, it really is. Time just seems to fly, I responded, picking up on the change in his voice. What's on your mind, Dennis? You seem a bit distant, I inquired, concerned. Patricia, there's something significant I need to discuss with you, Dennis started, clearly hesitant. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and well, I want you to marry me, he said, his voice echoing the commitment he had proposed years ago. Life with Dennis initially felt like a dream. His kindness and thoughtfulness enveloped me, making me feel deeply cherished. However, as the years passed, the routine of daily life and various stresses began to alter the dynamics of our relationship. Hey, Patricia, why do we have leftovers for dinner again? I told you I wanted roast beef. Dennis interrupted my thoughts abruptly one evening. I'm sorry, Dennis, but with Eric needing so much attention, it's tough to prepare something elaborate, I explained, a twinge of guilt in my voice. I don't need excuses. It's just taking care of Eric, right? Don't make it into something it isn't, Dennis retorted, his irritation clear. He often complained about his demanding job at his parents' company. I need to put up with this because I'm going to be the next president of the company, he would say in a dismissive tone. Despite his ambitions, Dennis often struggled to meet his professional targets, and his frustration seemed to spill over into our home life. I might not come home tonight. I have golf with a senior colleague tomorrow. Just make sure you have a proper dinner ready tonight, he said, leaving me stunned by his coldness. Everything tastes so bland. Can't you do anything right these days? He criticized later that night, adding tension to our already strained relationship. The cheerful conversations and meaningful exchanges that characterized the early days of our marriage had become rare, replaced by Dennis's frequent absences and preference for spending time with friends or pursuing hobbies. During my maternity leave, I devoted myself entirely to our home and Eric, waking early and managing endless chores, yet I felt increasingly exhausted and emotionally distanced from Dennis. Sometimes I found a little solace in the happy memories of our early days together, those moments filled with laughter and Dennis's infectious smile. Yet it was clear that things had shifted. "Mom?" Eric called out with a bright smile, his innocent joy providing a brief respite from the growing gap between Dennis and me. His recent habit of calling me Mom more frequently was a small, comforting anchor in our shifting lives. As I navigated my daily responsibilities, I hoped for a spark that might reignite our relationship. Yet, deep down, I sensed that the warmth we once shared had cooled significantly. One quiet morning, as I tidied up before Dennis left for work, I pondered our future, wondering if we could ever recapture the love that once brought us together. I watched him coming down from the second floor, dressed not in his usual business suit, but in casual attire I hadn't seen before. It must have been new. "Aren't you supposed to be at work today?" I asked, a bit puzzled by his appearance. "I'm going to work. I don't need a suit today," Dennis replied dismissively, his tone edged with irritation. "Seriously, stop nagging me. If I say it's fine, then it's fine. Don't question everything," he snapped, leaving me speechless. I was just asking a simple question. His sharp response was disheartening. "Anyway, I'm leaving now," Dennis announced, his departure through the front door feeling more like an escape. A nagging thought lingered in my mind. Was he going to his office? I tried not to dwell on the possibilities as the distance between us seemed to grow with each passing day. Our conversations had become infrequent, each interaction laced with a chill that hadn't been there before. The smiles and warmth we once shared seemed like distant memories now, replaced by his criticisms and sarcastic comments, whether about my cooking or how I kept the house. His harsh words pierced my heart, leaving me to wonder if the strain in our relationship was somehow my fault. As days turned into weeks, the lack of clarity and the constant coldness from Dennis weighed heavily on me. Despite my efforts to manage our home and care for our son, Eric, it never seemed to be enough for Dennis. His once kind and considerate demeanor had transformed into one of constant critique. Something inside me broke. My love for Dennis began to fade, and the memories of happier times slowly drifted away. A sense of indifference began to fill the emptiness that had grown in my heart. What was the point of all my efforts if they went unappreciated? "Mom, look, I made this!" Eric's voice suddenly pulled me from my thoughts. "Oh, wow, that's amazing. Did you draw this?" I asked, genuinely impressed. "Yeah, this one's a dog and this is a cat," Eric explained proudly. "You're good at drawing, Eric," I praised him, his smile instantly warming my heart. As time passed, my feelings shifted. As my affection for Dennis waned, my love for Eric grew stronger. Watching him flourish, I began to seriously consider my future, specifically the possibility of divorce. I could no longer continue in a relationship where Dennis barely contributed to parenting, let alone his role as a father. The thought of being free from Dennis felt more liberating than daunting, yet one concern lingered. On our way to a scheduled meeting with Eric's grandparents, we arrived at their doorstep. "Hello, Mother." "Hi, Grandma." Eric greeted them warmly. "Eric, have you grown taller again?" Grandma exclaimed with joy. "Really? Yay!" Eric cheered, delighted by her praise. "It's good to see you. Come on in." Grandma welcomed us inside. "Thank you, I will," I replied. Despite my strained relationship with Dennis, his parents, my in-laws, had always been a source of comfort. They ran a nearby business and had shown unwavering kindness and support toward Eric and me. "That's right. I brought some delicious sweets from the station," I added, trying to maintain the peace and warmth of family ties during these complex times. "I'll serve them with coffee now. Please have a seat and relax," Grandma insisted kindly as we arrived at her home. "Let me help," I offered, eager to be of assistance. "No, it's fine. You must be tired from taking care of Eric. Just have a seat. You need to rest when you can," Grandma reassured me, her tone gentle and caring. "Thank you, Mother," I replied gratefully, settling into the comforting atmosphere of their home. My in-laws always treated me like their own daughter, their presence acting like a soothing balm to my often weary spirit. They invited us over almost every week, always genuinely interested in our well-being, their voices soft and comforting, like a soothing melody to my ears. They adored their time with Eric, lavishing him with attention and toys, and playing with him every chance they got. I felt deeply cherished by their actions. Sometimes my father-in-law would take Eric to a nearby park, knowing how much Eric loved birds. He even bought him a bird book once, a thoughtful gesture that deepened our familial bond. My in-laws were always there to listen to my troubles, including my challenges with Dennis and managing household duties. They responded with understanding and compassion, their words of encouragement and advice infusing warmth and gratitude into our visits. "I'm worried if Dennis is causing you trouble," my mother-in-law once remarked with a concerned smile as my father-in-law and Eric played nearby. "No, it's fine," I assured her, though her worried expression lingered. My father-in-law also showed concern for my well-being, often cooking new recipes for me, knowing my love for delicious food. His thoughtful gestures and the comforting moments he shared with Eric while they played brought peace to my heart. "Eric, what kind of animal shall we see next time?" my father-in-law asked playfully. "I want to see big fish next time," Eric exclaimed excitedly. "All right, let's go to the aquarium next time," my father-in-law suggested, eliciting a joyful "yay" from Eric. Watching them interact, I couldn't help but smile. Eric adored his grandparents, his carefree smile a stark contrast to the rare ones he showed at home with Dennis. "Patricia, feel free to talk to us about anything," my mother-in-law said kindly as we were leaving. Her words pained my heart a little. Little did she know, I was contemplating a divorce from Dennis. I didn't want to burden my in-laws or sadden them, even if my relationship with Dennis could be mended. I cherished my bond with them and wanted Eric to continue enjoying his joyful times with them. I was apprehensive about opening up to them about Dennis, fearing their reaction. Just as these worries occupied my mind, an unexpected incident unfolded. My in-laws had kindly offered to take care of Eric, allowing me to enjoy a cafe outing with a friend. "It's been a long time since we've had a cafe day like this, hasn't it?" my friend remarked as we sat down, sipping our coffee. "Really, Patricia, you've seemed busy recently," she observed with concern. "Have I?" I replied vaguely, trying to brush off the worry in her eyes. "Hey, Patricia, has something happened with your husband recently?" My friend hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "What do you mean?" I asked, tilting my head in confusion. "Well, actually, I saw something the other day. I saw your husband walking with a woman," she confessed, her tone cautious. "I don't know." My friend's voice trailed off, her expression clouded with concern. For a moment, my mind went blank. Deep down, though, I wasn't surprised. Reflecting on Dennis's recent behavior, I realized there had been signs I had chosen to ignore. My friend reached out and held my hand, her eyes full of sympathy. "Patricia, I think you should talk to Dennis," she suggested gently. "Yeah, maybe I haven't been myself lately," I admitted, feeling the weight of her concern and the situation. "That's why I invited you out today," she explained softly. "Is that so? I'm sorry for worrying you," I apologized. "Don't apologize, Patricia. Whatever decision you make about Dennis, I'm on your side," she assured me warmly. "Thank you," I replied gratefully, feeling a sense of relief wash over me.
We parted ways, and as I headed home, the shock of her revelation gave way to a strange calm. This clarity about Dennis's actions solidified my resolve to end my relationship with him. Imagining a future just with Eric, despite the uncertainties, strengthened my determination. I needed to be strong for Eric's sake. "I'm home," I announced as I entered the house. Today was exhausting. "Welcome back," Dennis greeted me casually, not noticing my subdued demeanor. "Hey," I started, my voice steady but firm. "I've been waiting for your return," I added as Dennis carelessly threw his bag on the sofa. "Can it wait until after dinner?" Dennis replied, visibly annoyed. "No, I want to talk about it now," I insisted. "What now? Such a hassle," Dennis grumbled, avoiding eye contact. "Well, this situation is your fault, isn't it?" I confronted him directly. "Huh? What are you talking about?" Dennis looked puzzled, but a flicker of unease flashed across his face. "I heard from my friend. Is it true that you were seen walking with another woman?" I pressed, my voice calm yet assertive. Dennis's reaction was a clear confirmation. His face changed color instantly and his eyes darted around, searching for an escape. "That must be a mistake. Your friend saw wrong," Dennis stammered. "She heard your voice and even knows the store you two went into. Shall I confirm it with the staff?" I challenged, feeling a surge of boldness. "It's useless to hide it," I continued as Dennis struggled for words. "Damn it," Dennis spat out bitterly, his anger finally surfacing. "Yeah, that's right. Her name is Emma. Unlike you, she's perfect. At work, in housekeeping. And yes, she's cute," Dennis finally admitted, his words cutting deep. This confession, though painful, was the final push I needed to pursue my happiness and well-being, free from the doubts and the strained pretense of our relationship. "She even said she likes me, even though I'm married." "Yeah, that just shows how attractive I am, right?" Dennis said, his tone mocking and sharp. He mimicked what he claimed the other woman, Emma, had said to him as if to justify the situation. Would a normal woman approach a married man like that? There must be more to it, I reasoned, trying to understand, but Dennis's attitude was dismissive. "Why should I feel bad for you and Eric? You should be ashamed for not supporting me more in my hard work," Dennis retorted defensively. "I heard from your father and mother that you hadn't even met your work quotas. Can you still say you're working hard?" I shot back, the disappointment in him weighing heavily on me. "I'm doing things my way. I'm going to be the next president, so don't interfere," Dennis asserted arrogantly. "I doubt you'll ever become president," I stated quietly, my resolve hardening. "What did you say?" Dennis's voice rose, his anger flaring. "I'm done with you. Let's divorce," I declared firmly, unable to bear his excuses any longer. "I'll divorce you and marry Emma. Do whatever you want," Dennis pointed at me, his words sharp and hurtful. "Don't talk bad about Emma. You're just jealous of her, aren't you?" Dennis accused, misinterpreting my stunned silence for shock. "That's not the case," I replied quietly, my heart sinking. "I'll show you. You'll regret this when you come begging to me later," Dennis shouted angrily, storming out of the house, likely heading to Emma's place. Impulsively, I tried to follow him but tripped over a slightly lifted carpet edge. I fell hard, hitting my back against the table with a sharp pain I had never felt before. Overwhelmed by the intense agony, I groaned, unable to move. Crawling towards my smartphone, I dialed for an ambulance as darkness threatened to engulf me. "Mom, where am I?" Eric's voice brought me back when I woke up. I lay in the hospital bed, my head spinning and my body aching all over. A nurse quickly came to my aid and called a doctor. Seeing my anxious state, they explained what had happened. "It's okay, you'll gradually recover," the nurse assured me. "Yes, thank you," I managed, trying to absorb the news. "It's good that your life isn't in danger," the doctor added. However, the results of the subsequent examination shocked me deeply. The fall had caused spinal cord damage, making it difficult for me to walk. I was informed that I would need a wheelchair and my life would change drastically. After being discharged, life at home proved more challenging than I had anticipated.
I realized I couldn't manage household chores, childcare, or even take care of myself alone. At the suggestion of my in-laws, I decided to live with them for a while, since I couldn't rely on Dennis for help. With Eric there too, I had no choice but to lean on their kindness. They must have been suspicious of Dennis's absence despite my condition. I knew I had to tell them the truth soon. Just as I contemplated this, the front door of my in-laws' house swung open with a loud noise. "Dennis, where have you been?" they demanded, their voices filled with concern and a hint of suspicion. As Dennis stepped into the room, my mother-in-law's voice trembled with anger. "How can you be so heartless when Patricia is in such a condition?" she scolded, staring him down as he glanced at me in the wheelchair. "So, she's really in a wheelchair, huh?" Dennis scoffed, looking at me dismissively. "A useless woman who can't do household chores or take care of a child is of no use to me. Hurry up and divorce me, and pay me compensation for all the trouble," he declared coldly. "How can you say such a thing to Patricia?" My father-in-law interjected, visibly shocked by Dennis's cruel words. "It's okay, Mom, Dad," I murmured weakly, feeling the weight of Dennis's callousness wash over me. The room fell silent with tension. "Patricia, let's get a divorce," Dennis declared emotionlessly. I nodded, tears welling up in my eyes, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm sorry, Father and Mother," I said, grieving the end of what had once promised to be a loving marriage. Surprisingly, his cruel words didn't sting as much as I thought they would. They simply confirmed that my love for him had completely faded. Contrary to everyone's surprise, Dennis seemed oddly cheerful about the situation. "Now that you understand, I can freely marry Emma," he remarked casually, as if discussing something as trivial as the weather. "Dennis, were you seeing another woman?" my father-in-law asked, his tone sharpened by betrayal. "Yeah, so what? What's the big deal?" Dennis shrugged, unabashed. "Patricia is boring, not particularly cute, and can't handle housework or childcare properly." "How can you say that?" my mother-in-law exclaimed, shocked. "Patricia has been trying so hard with the housework and raising Eric." "Yeah, whatever," Dennis dismissed, his tone callous. "Anyway, I've decided to be with Emma. Dad, it's time to hand over the company to me. You're getting old." "Nonsense! I won't let someone like you take over the company," my father-in-law retorted firmly. "Fine, just send me the divorce papers by mail, okay?" Dennis concluded nonchalantly. After separating from Dennis, I started a new life. I now live comfortably in a house recommended by my in-laws, with the help of a caretaker they suggested. My daily life feels easier than before, a calm tranquility settling over my new reality. However, amidst this calm, an unexpected development awaited. One day, while I was passing time peacefully, the doorbell rang. Glancing at the monitor, I saw Dennis standing outside, his face a mix of confusion and desperation. "Hey, Patricia, what the hell is going on?" Dennis blurted out as I opened the door. "What's up, Dennis?" I replied calmly, masking my surprise. "I got fired from the company. Dad just keeps saying it can't be helped," Dennis confessed, his desperation evident. "Oh dear," I murmured sympathetically. "Mom and Dad are saying you're no longer our son. We're cutting ties with you," Dennis continued, his voice tinged with disbelief. "That's tough," I responded quietly, trying to process his sudden vulnerability. "I didn't know about the stocks. I had no idea you owned 95% of my parents' company's stocks. Why didn't you tell me?" Dennis pleaded. "Because you never asked," I replied evenly, maintaining my composure in the face of his unfolding crisis. Even though I hadn't prompted the question, Dennis anxiously sought clarity about my intentions by asking, "In the end, what do you expect from me?" "You know exactly what I want, Dennis. I want you to revoke my termination," he implored with a sense of urgency, his voice filled with desperation. "You have significant ownership in the company. Surely you can reverse my firing?" "That's correct, Dennis. Please, Patricia," he continued, his voice growing more desperate.
I'm being shunned by other companies. No one else will hire me. You're my only hope. If being secure in your job was important to you, you should have taken your role more seriously, I replied, unmoved by his pleas. But if you promise to be more dedicated, I'll consider rescinding your termination. Don't worry about the reports to the board or what she might say, he added hastily. Emma left me the moment she realized I had no chance of becoming president. She was only after my status, Dennis confessed bitterly. I see, I responded calmly, my emotions undisturbed. Please, Patricia, you're all I have left. Let's get married again. It's in your best interest, too, Dennis proposed, his voice laced with a glimmer of hope. I was taken aback by his audacity. Dennis, what are you talking about? You're in a wheelchair. You need my support, and Eric needs his father, he pressed, trying to influence my decision. My irritation flared at his boldness. How dare you say such things, I thought, just as Brian, my assistant, stepped in. I'm sorry, but Patricia no longer wishes to speak with you, Brian interjected assertively before I had the chance to react. Who are you? Dennis asked, visibly taken aback. I'm speaking to Patricia, Brian replied firmly. As I mentioned, she does not want to continue this conversation. But Patricia needs me, Dennis protested desperately. I have nothing more to say to you, and I never want to see you again, I declared through Brian, ending the conversation decisively. Stunned by the turn of events, Dennis tried to plead again, but Brian promptly turned off the monitor, cutting him off. Observing Brian's rare show of anger, I felt an unexpected respect for him. Brian, who was slightly older and had been introduced as a helper by my in-laws, had become an indispensable part of our lives, growing close to Eric and me. As time passed, I learned that Dennis, now abandoned by Emma and his parents, was facing a solitary struggle. However, his fate no longer affected me. With the support of my in-laws and Brian, I was finding new strength and stability at home. Brian's help with household and childcare duties allowed me to regain confidence and start meeting new people, sharing smiles, and embracing the joys of daily life. Reflecting on the arduous journey I had with Dennis, I realized I had moved past those challenges and was discovering a new version of myself. Our paths had diverged. While Dennis was possibly filled with regret on his lonely road, I was moving towards a future brimming with peace and happiness, surrounded by loved ones.